This is The Last Laugh. I'm Matt Wilstein from The Daily Beast, and if you have ever seen Family Guy, you will almost certainly recognize the voice of my guest on this week's show. She is a 3-time Emmy winner for playing Lois Griffin on that show and for her powerhouse work as Susie Myerson on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And she is currently on tour with her new solo show, Alex Borstein Is Thirsty. Alex Borstein, welcome to The Last Laugh.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited that this is the very last laugh. It's getting so tiring.
This is the last one that anyone's going to have, so better make it good.
I'm excited that this is it.
Well, I thought we could start with this new live show that you're touring. I have not gotten a chance to see it yet. I hope I do at some point. But so I thought maybe we could just start with you, telling us about it. What is this new show, and why are you so thirsty?
Why am I so thirsty? Why is anyone thirsty, Matt? The show is really about it's closer form of, I'd say, stand up than my last one person show was. There's still a beginning, middle, and end, and a through line, but really I'm just talking about what I'm dealing with, which is, they always say, write what you know, and I am trying to raise a couple of kids. I am trying to care for my aging parents, and I'm sandwiched right in the fucking middle. And it's, the center of an Oreo is delicious, but this is not as sweet. It's rough. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, I don't know, a thirst for enjoying. Is this going to be the last leg of my life? What is this? How much time do I have? And it's also about hydration. It's also about staying hydrated. Which is
very important.
Literally and figuratively. Staying thirsty, keeping yourself motivated to get up every day and face what you got to face.
Yeah, you've been doing these one-person shows for a bit now, but you said this one is more like stand-up. You didn't start out as a stand-up comedian. Do you feel like now you are sort of getting closer to what that is, because it's such a specific art form, which is not what you set out to do necessarily?
Well, you may not have seen me first as a stand-up, but the very first time I did stand-up, I was 16 years old.
Oh wow!
So it's been in my veins for a very long time. I was 16 and I got booked at a very tiny local bar that was called Gallagher's, no relation to the comic. It was in the lobby of a Ramada Inn. And I got booked there, and my parents had to accompany me because I wasn't 21. So it's been a long time that I've been trying to do some version of stand-up. And then in college, I did stand-up. But then performing, stand-up is the scariest thing there is. It's all you. So in success, it's wonderful because it's all you. But in failure, there's no one else to blame, and you can't point any fingers. So I think I kind of wussed out for a while and just wanted to do sketch and wanted to do group dynamics. And it's also really lonely. Stand-up's very lonely, being on the road and doing shows and waiting around at a club till 2 a.m. and it smells like beer and piss and desperation. And so I kind of always did it here and there. I'd pop in, pop out, pop in, pop out. And now I kind of have the time, and I have a lot to talk about, and really enjoyed the last special that I did. So that's the aim here, kind of getting this hour and a half of material ready to shoot.
What have the shows been like so far? Do you feel like you find things on stage, or is it a very set show? Because I know you do interact with the audience a bit, right?
Yeah, it's always evolving. I mean, that's what's so much fun about taking it on the road, and it's a new audience, it's a new city, and there's so many new possibilities. I've so far done the show in Barcelona and New York and Los Angeles and Portland and Vashon Island, which is off of Seattle. And they've all been really different, and it has grown. It started as a solid hour. Now we're getting close, it's like an hour, 20 minutes. You add, you take away, you polish, you change. That's what's so much fun about it, is that it's a living, breathing thing. And it's like raising a child. It really is. Going on the road. How was
performing in war-torn Portland?
I was there the day before the war arrived, apparently.
Oh,
Literally, I
wow.
left and then got all of these messages on social media like, you're so lucky you missed this. So yeah, it's that is also an interesting part of the show is as I get to cities, my first question is like, is ICE here yet? What's happening? And it's watching it unfold, watching the story of the states unfold as you're traveling through them is really interesting.
So I thought what we could do is kind of, trace your very unique career along the way, because I've been a fan of yours for so long, and going all the way back to what I think was my first introduction to you and a lot of people's was MADtv, which, at the time, I feel like when you were you on it from the very beginning, or what? How did that work?
No, I started in the show's third season. That was my first season. And I was on it for 5 seasons.
Yeah. I mean, and at the time it felt like it was very much, in this weird competition with SNL where it was like they were, these 2 sketch shows that were on at the same time. Obviously SNL has a much longer history. But when you were auditioning for MADtv, was it the kind of thing where you're like, I can either try to get on MADtv or SNL, or were you kind of gunning for both, or how did that
I
work
had
for you?
no access to SNL whatsoever. I had
really?
no idea how to even attempt that. I was working at a local Los Angeles theater company called Acme Comedy Theater. Mm-hmm. And Acme became a little bit of a feeder to MADtv, whereas Groundlings was the one that fed into SNL, and I had never been a groundling. And it was, I got a group of 5 of us together from Acme Comedy Theater, and I submitted us to this comedy festival in Austin, Texas. It was called BS, Big Stinkin' International Improv and Comedy Festival. BS3 or BS2, I forget how many years they had done it. It was,
yeah.
And I submitted us, and we got in, and it was there that we were seen by scouts, talent agent, or casting people, that's the word, for MADtv. And what's funny is they were located about a mile from Acme Comedy Theater and had never set foot in our theater, but they saw us in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, they had to travel across the country. Yeah,
across the country. But that's how it works sometimes. You put yourself out there, you just try something, and it works. And all 5 of us got auditions, and I got super lucky and got on the show. And we were a different breed than SNL. We weren't live the same way they were. We shot before a live studio audience, but we had the blessing of editing. So a lot of our pieces and everything felt really different. We had to memorize all of our material. There were no cue cards.
Oh, wow.
Because we weren't, on the fly, like that live feeling. We knew what sketches were going to be in, and you had to learn it. Some of our pieces were pre-taped, pre-shot, that were more filmic. But yeah, it was always a bummer to be so closely compared, because they were such different animals. Like what they did live was so different than what we were doing. But boy, it was fun. I mean, those were some of the most fun years of my life. It was pretty great.
Did the audition process for SNL is so legendary? I have not heard as much about what you had to do for MADtv. Was it the same kind of thing? We were coming in with characters and impressions, and what do you remember about actually auditioning?
Yeah. You had to come in with a certain amount of characters and a certain amount of impersonations. And I hadn't really done impersonations per se, like on the stage, or tried to do that professionally before. But it was just kind of like, okay, who do I enjoy? Who do I like mimicking? And mine were so random and strange. Like I did Eartha Kitt, which was just so not relevant at the time, would never be something I could do on screen. It was just crazy, but it was just, okay, this makes me laugh. I'm going to do this. I think Rosie O'Donnell was one. That was actually one that I was doing on stage at Acme Theater. She had her TV show at the time. That may have actually been one of the things they really responded to that got me the gig, because she was so prevalent at that point that that was kind of a funny bit, and she was still not really out or open about her sexuality. So the impersonation kind of rode that crest and walked that fine line. And that was, you brought your characters in, and then you you could write down those characters you auditioned with and say, I brought these to the show, so I technically have some ownership of these characters. It's very strange. But so many of the things you did were completely altered by the time they made it to the air. You know, you worked with writers there, and you changed and grew and rewrote. And so a lot of the things you were doing live that you brought in an audition ultimately ended up looking or sounding a little bit different or very different by the time it made it to air, if it did.
Were there characters that you brought in that then became big characters on the show?
Well, one of the big characters that I did, Miss Swan, was based on my grandmother. And it was originated on stage at Acme, and she was called the Other Gabor. And that, you know, became Miss Swan. It kind of morphed into this completely, I mean, very similar. At its core, it's the same. It's an immigrant. It's someone who chooses when and where they exactly know how much English they know. They always have the upper hand, even though they kind of pretend to be a little obtuse is the word maybe people have used to describe her. So a lot of that at its core, but visually and like her ethnicity became super mushy and different.
Yeah. I was going to say, was it a different accent that you were doing as your grandmother, I assume?
No, it was actually really very similar accent.
Oh, okay.
Almost just very, very babyish is kind of what.
Oh, no, I cannot. I do not understand. No.
Just this very, not me. I didn't switch the price tags at Marshall's. You know, that was kind of my grandma's MO. So, but yeah, we put her in a nail salon. We put her, like her look went from a curly gray wig to the dark, blunt cut looking extremely Asian, and it had some silver in it, but it looked pretty dark. But
I guess, was that not the choice you would have made at the time? I mean, or was that someone else pushing you in that direction, or do you feel like
we all kind of did, it all kind of happened together in the room, and we laughed so hard and we loved it. And of course now it's such a different climate.
I mean, it's such an iconic character. And I remember laughing at that character when I was watching MADtv as a kid. And yeah, it is very different now, and maybe something that wouldn't happen.
The thing that I look back on and I think, oh, here's why it really wasn't fair or cool, because we had no other representation on that show,
right?
From Asian community. Zero. There was not. I really don't think there was one Asian. I mean, I have Mongolian heritage, okay, but like, how far back are we had no Asian writers. We had no
at that time. I think Bobby Lee joined later, right?
Bobby Lee joined later. So looking back on that, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's not really cool. But it really, the things we were doing on that show were all kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say harsh, but we just had no concept of any of that. We were just pushing the envelope, trying to be really funny. Our audience was predominantly urban. Like MADtv always won in all the urban markets, and SNL won in all of the flyover Midwest, So we pushed a lot of that, we had a lot of sketches that really pushed the envelope. And it was an absolute blast at the time. And now you look back and go like, oh, that's not entirely comfortable,
Yeah. But I would say pushing the envelope, finding that line is a theme of a lot of your work that you've done, including Family Guy, which is the thing that you are probably best known for now, over MADtv. I think you just had your 25th anniversary of the show last year.
Is that crazy?
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, obviously you couldn't have known when you signed on to do that what it would become. When you did get that opportunity, meeting Seth MacFarlane for the first time, what were your sort of first impressions of him and what this show was? Because again, nobody knew who he was or what it was going to be.
Yeah, I met him through a woman named Leslie Collins Small, and she was an executive for Fox. She was married to Adam Small. MADtv was run by Adam Small and Fax Bear. And Leslie approached me at MADtv and said, hey, I'm developing this animated thing with this kid. I think she really referred to him as a kid because he was 25 years old at the time. And would you help us out to just do a pilot presentation? You can do voices, right? I was like, sure, I'll do anything. And I showed up at this recording studio in Santa Monica, California. I think it was called Salami Studios, which is weird. I met Seth for the first time. We bizarrely had the same exact haircut. Like, we both had these weird short bangs. Like, I don't know what it was. Mine was all brushed forward, and so was his. It was so strange. And he showed me a drawing of Lois, and he showed me the rest of the characters. And at the time, I was still doing Acme Comedy Theater while I was on MADtv, and I was doing this sketch called Magic Man, where I played this guy's mother, and I was wearing this red wig and an apron, and I thought, this kind of reminds me of this Lois. And I was doing a ripoff of a cousin of mine, her voice, a Long Island cousin who talked very slowly like this and very nasally, and they kind of morphed. Seth was like, I like it, but you got to talk faster. The show's only a half an hour. So it kind of picked up speed, and that's what we ended up doing. And it's, who knew? And then they got picked up to series, and I had to fight for the role. They then auditioned every other woman in Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
To see are you sure this is who you want to stick with? And Seth fought for me, thank God. And here we are, 25.
Yeah, I mean, you were all working actors at the time, Mila Kunis and Seth Green, but it wasn't like they were trying to cast, maybe they were trying to cast like celebrities to put,
No, I mean, I was not a celebrity. I think they just wanted to maybe they thought there could be some name recognition I think one of the people who auditioned for my part was Linda Blair, which makes me laugh.
That's funny.
The Exorcist. But I think everyone, they had tons of people read for it just to make sure, but maybe they thought there'd be some help with a name recognition. Mila wasn't the first Meg.
Mm-hmm.
The very first Meg was it Lacey Chabert and then Cree Summer, or was it Cree and then Lacey? I can't remember, but Mila was number 3 actually, which is interesting. And I think she was kind of part of that Fox family too, being on the 70s show. And
right.
Maybe that was the way in. Maybe Leslie also reached out to her. I'm not sure actually how she was brought into the fold. I'm not sure, but here we are.
I mean, you've been doing it, as we said, for, I guess now 26 years, this character. Do you feel like with animation, things don't necessarily change and evolve? The characters are kind of staying the same age, even though so much time is passing. Do you feel like the show has changed? Do you feel like Lois has changed over that time? Or is it really this, constant thing that's been able to stay steady that whole time?
I do think it has changed. I mean, we still have the same format. We cut away, we take punches, but I think it's a tiny bit different now. I think there's a tiny bit more care in how we punch and the direction we punch. And sometimes I miss some of the old Lois and Peter stuff, and I'll I still consult on the show, and I'll say, hey, can we go back to some of that stuff? Can we have Lois and Peter having a little more fun sexually, or being more on the same side? Or so sometimes you'll fall into patterns that last a while, but then you try to push back on those. And
yeah, the characters can definitely be very antagonistic towards each other, I suppose.
Yeah. And we don't have it's similar. A lot of people will compare Family Guy with South Park. And it's very similar how I feel about when we used to be compared with MADtv and SNL. South Park is almost live. The way they animate, they have the ability to, that week, something in the news, with the Trump, how they're able to, punch Trump. They have that luxury of speed. Their things are made so, our episodes take more than a year to make each episode.
Oh, wow. The way that
it's animated, the music. So it's a really different animal. We have to write. We try to do some stuff that's pop culture, but when we're doing it, by the time but right before we air it, we do like an evergreen test. Like, is this person going to still be in the news 2 years from now, let's all think about this very
Wow.
carefully.
Yeah,
And
that is crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fascinating to watch how South Park is engaging with this political moment. I think it's like Family Guy in the same way that it has, I mean, it's, as you said, it's made very differently, but it has this very broad appeal, but is able to reach, so it's able to reach people across the political spectrum, even though it's a very pointedly political show. And I think Family Guy, even though it's maybe less explicitly political, it also has that same ability to reach people in a different way than, so much of our media now is like, either for one side or the other. Do you feel like Family Guy has that aspect to it?
I do. And I think we've also been, it's not that we've been careful to do this. We've just naturally done it. Like we punch everybody. Like we make fun of our own, if you want to say, the arts, we make fun of actors like crazy. We make fun of artists. We make fun of right wing. We make fun of left wing. So I feel like that's kind of been a saving grace in a way, that you're appealing to every side because you're punching in all directions. And it's more comfortable that way for me too. I kind of I'm able to take it. I've always been able to take a good punch and take a great verbal hit and, touche and applaud it. And I have very thick skin, I guess, from a life in comedy.
You must have to, right? Yeah.
I guess. And it's in some ways, it's difficult because I don't have a normal sense. There's some kind of a disorder people have where they don't feel pain. I forget what it's called. They can like touch a hot stove and they don't have that sensory. There's almost something to that when you've been writing or working in comedy for so long that you don't know when you're burning your own skin sometimes. And okay.
I was going to ask you about that because, I mean, you said that over the time that one of the ways the show has changed is that it has maybe been more thoughtful in some ways or careful in how it tackles certain issues. I mean, were there times along the way that things went too far for you or made you feel uncomfortable, or, a joke or a storyline that you go, oh, are we really going to say that? Are we really going to do that?
Yeah, there's always stuff that we'll have a table read, and my gauge is, did I laugh? Even if it was uncomfortable and harsh, did I think it was funny? If I don't think it's funny, I'll definitely, when it's time to give notes, I'll say, I just don't think this works. It's not that I'm offended. I don't think the funny outweighs the offense. And that's kind of usually, comedy is offense. That's what it's supposed to do. But the funny has to be present. And so that's always my gauge. I've never refused to record anything, but I would say 8 times out of 10, by the time it airs, some of those ones that I was most uncomfortable with may have changed anyway because they weren't getting the laugh in the screenings, because they weren't. When it came time to animate it, it just didn't work, or it didn't.
Yeah. Can you remember any examples of something where you kind of spoke up and said, hey guys, maybe we should rethink this?
I don't know. I can't. There's so many. I can't think of
the volume must be just overwhelming.
I think a lot of times it's sometimes if it's taking a stab at a particular person. I know on MADtv there were times that we did some bits about JonBenet Ramsey's parents, where I was playing the mother, and Michael McDonald was playing the father, and I mean, even at the time, it was slightly uncomfortable because you thought, this is just horrendous on all accounts. Like whether these people had anything to do with it. And it was more recent then. And it was so recent. And now looking back, it's even more like, oh my God, what these people went through. And and I hate that we were a part of that. Or I played Chelsea Clinton, and we made all these Chelsea Clinton jokes, and it felt at the time I said this, why? I'm just not sure this is funny enough to just slam a teenager that happens to be the president's kid.
Yeah, who didn't choose that life.
And, we did it. We ended up doing it. And what they did, you can actually find the sketch probably. At the end of it, they agreed to scroll a chyron at the end that said, we actually think this is awful and we can't believe you laughed at it.
It's a bit of a cop out, but
it was a cop out, but they took some of our notes and concerns and did it that way. That like, why are you laughing at this? But I also, at the same note, you're like, this is the family in the White House right now, and this is pop culture, and this is what we're talking about, and this is what's in the news, and so you go for it. It's also changed how Seth, when we started this show, was a complete outsider to the industry.
Right.
And, all of the writers were all these nerds in the room who all feel like complete outsiders. So you're like, yeah, let's make a joke about so-and-so. Let's make a joke. Then, Seth becomes friends with a lot of these people. You start shooting movies with some of the same people.
Does that get harder to make fun of everybody in Hollywood when you're
It
part of
changes
Hollywood?
it. It certainly changes it. And I think, we would make Halle Berry jokes, and then, I made a movie with Halle Berry, and thankfully, almost everyone that I've ever worked with that we poked fun at loved it, because they're funny and thoughtful people who get, hey, I'm at a level where Family Guy's mentioning me. That's cool.
Yeah.
But it does change, I'm
have
sure
you run into anyone who, have you run into anyone who did not think it was funny or, was really offended by something? I
believe that one of our writers who later worked with William Shatner had to have a very rich and deep conversation about it with him. And I think it was cool. I think actually he ended up being very cool about it, but there was a little bit of an issue with that. Trying to think of who else. I don't know. There's some people who would come up to me saying, hey, you guys made fun of me. Will you please have me do the voice myself next time? That's what they were upset about. Marlee Matlin actually came to us after we poked fun and said, I love it and I want to be a part of it. And when Seth and I did a live show, she actually came out and did a really, really funny bit with us on stage. And it was filmed. I think it's on one of the DVDs. I think it was called like Almost Live Variety Show or something with Seth and Alex. Yeah. And she's very, very funny on it. And that all was born out of her saying, include me.
Do you have as I said, the volume is so large that I'm not sure how you would ever pick one thing, but do you have a favorite Lois scene or episode or line or anything that comes to mind when you think about the character?
I do. There's a scene where Peter and the guys, I think it's Stewie and Brian, I'm not sure if Chris is a part of it. He might be. They are all sitting around and they are drinking Ipecac to see who pukes first. They're having a competition. You know what Ipecac is?
I don't.
Oh, Ipecac. It's like you can get it over the counter and it will make you throw up.
Oh, okay.
If you've ingested something that could be poisonous, you take Ipecac, you wait a certain amount of time, and then you zook. So the fellas are sitting around having an Ipecac competition, I guess, to see who could hold out the longest. And one of them starts to vomit profusely, then the other, then the other, then the other. Family Guy timing, there's a lull. And then more, an onslaught, more puke, more puke, more puke. It goes on and on and on. Finally, they're done. They're breathless. And the door opens from the kitchen and it's Lois saying, who wants chowder? And she's holding a giant bowl of clam chowder. That's my favorite.
Perfect.
There is an episode coming up that will air this next season that I think is my new favorite episode. And it's called Edible Arrangement. And it's kind of a two-hander with Seth and I. It's Stewie and Lois, which we haven't seen a lot of. And it's so cool. It's so different. And it was so much fun to do. And I think that's going to be my new favorite.
Hey guys, I'm excited to tell you about Inside Trump's Head, a new podcast from The Daily Beast, hosted by Trump biographer Michael Wolff and the Beast's resident provocateur, Joanna Coles. 3 times a week, Michael and Joanna unpack what's really going on inside the mind of the world's most unpredictable man, Donald Trump, bringing you unflinching access and insight you won't find anywhere else. If you've ever wondered what the hell is Trump thinking and who hasn't, you don't want to miss these conversations. Subscribe for new episodes every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday on YouTube, and the next day on your favorite podcast platforms. So the next show that I want to talk about is a personal favorite of mine, which is Getting On, which I'm sure not enough people have seen, but anyone who's listening who has not seen this HBO show, Getting On, please go watch it, because the whole show is great, but it has a scene in it that is still, I think, the thing that has made me laugh harder than anything else I've ever seen on TV, which is when you're doing the translation with Niecy Nash.
The language line,
the patient, and you're trying to use, you don't have a translator, so you're trying to translate to Niecy Nash, who's on the phone with a translator, and it's sort of a game of telephone. So I just want to hear you talk about that scene, where that came from, what you remember about it, because I think that's one of the funniest things that's ever been on television.
Well, I'm in agreement. Getting On is I think, my most favorite project. It was tiny, but it was mighty. We had 3 seasons, 6 episodes each season. It was run by Mark Olson and Will Sheffer, and they did Big Love, if you remember that show.
Yeah. I loved that show.
They're so cool. They're so interesting, so smart. Getting On was it was a British show, originally aired in the UK, and they redeveloped it for the US. So that episode, that scene, that is from the British show, but it, I think, changed a bit in Mark and Will's hands. And the concept being that in these hospitals, they couldn't get a translator to come out in person. So they had what's called a language line. You could call up and have someone translate for you over the phone, and what a patient needs during an emergency. It could be quick. And they had this woman in the bed, and she was being instructed by them to say this, say this, say this in your language. So she just kept going on and on and on. And my job was to try to repeat what she was saying loudly so that Niecy could then repeat it into the phone. And I mean, there's such a logic gap there of, why wouldn't we just get the phone right over there and hold it? But
it's the distance that makes it funny. Yeah. It's
the distance that makes it funny, and the lack of logic. And my character, Dawn, who is this just pathetic, desperate creature. I loved that character so much. She was
but so well-meaning too.
So well-meaning. And her just continuing to scream her version of this language across the room as loud as she can. It was very hard not to laugh. Very hard not to laugh.
Did you?
Lucy and I had a hard time. And I think we went on and on and on. They let us go and go and go.
I mean, it's a long scene that aired, but I can imagine you could keep
There's
going for a long time.
There's another moment on the show that I love, and it was improvised, and it was Niecy and I, my character's having dialysis. And I'm sad that I'm stuck hooked up to this machine, and Niecy comes over to kind of take care of me for a bit. And she had, between scenes, been singing this song that I was not familiar with by an artist named Genuine, called Pony. Okay,
I'm aware. Yeah. Yep.
I was not aware, but Niecy would sing this between, just for fun, on set. She'd sing it, and I'd be like, "Hey, sing the Pony song again. Sing that Pony song." And so she'd sing it, and she'd do this real soulful version of it, and I loved it. So at the end of that scene, she said, "Is there anything else I can do for you?" or something like that. And I just deadpan looked at her, barely. You can see me almost smile, almost laugh. I said, "Will you sing me the Pony song?" And she didn't break character, and she, God bless her, she did it. And the entire crew, I mean, we all were dying that we couldn't laugh. And as soon as it ended, we, were roaring with laughter, and we begged Mark and Will to keep it in the show. There was not a lot of improv in that show.
They were like, you just went fully rogue. And
they were like, "What is it? What?" And they said, "Please," we were like, "Please just watch it. Please understand how weird it is." And somehow they trusted us, and they kept it in. And it's one of my favorite things on screen.
So then, of course, came Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which you won 2 Emmys for that show, and I think won 2 Emmys in 1 year. The first year you won, right? One for voiceover and one for playing Susie on Maisel. I'd say I interviewed you as part of that first Emmy campaign for the Daily Beast, so I think I just deserve like a tiny bit of credit, but
Thank you.
You deserve most of it.
Was I an asshole?
No, you were great.
Oh, well then great. It's win-win. No, it was that was an amazing surprise. Amy Sherman Palladino all the while kept saying, "I'm going to get you an Emmy. You're going to see." And I was like, "Okay, great." I thought that, that I had kind of given up on show business. I had moved to Spain, and Amy wrote that. She presented the script to me, and then I flew back to audition for it because I was like, well, the chances of it actually be getting it are so small. I might as well just audition. It'll be fun. I got the part. Okay, well, the chances of the show actually going to series are so small, so I'll fly back and shoot the show. And then, it went to series, and I thought, well, I'm not the lead. I'm playing this, I think I was like third billing when we start. It's like, it's not about me, and I'm probably going to be able to fly in, do a few episodes and fly back. It's going to be, and then it kept growing and growing and growing.
Yeah. And you really did become the second lead, I think.
Yeah. I think they became such a duo, it became a two-hander, and there's only so much I think you can plan when you create a show, but sometimes things do take on a life of their own. And, but yeah, it kind of, she became more and more integral, I think, to the story. And then, yeah, I got very lucky with the Emmys.
That second year that you won for Maisel, you gave that speech that is just incredible. I kind of got chills rewatching it, where you say, "Step out of line, ladies." And you tell the story of your grandmother, right? And who escaped the Holocaust. How did you know going in that's what you wanted to say? And how did you decide that that's the message that you wanted to put out there?
It's funny. It's like someone else asked me that. Having won the year before, I thought, on the one part, you're like, I'm not going to win again. Everyone likes the new shiny thing every year. It's not going to be me. It's going to be the new version. But you're like, okay, maybe, and I should have something in my head. And I knew I wanted to talk about it, dedicating it to kind of women and women's strength and Amy. And in the past, when I've been asked, who are your inspiration, I've always talked about my grandmother. And so it kind of mushed together, but I really didn't know it was going to be that soundbite or that piece. And I didn't know that exact trail of it's weird. It's how those muses enter your body sometimes. But I knew that I wanted to talk about those people and that importance. But step out of line kind of came out of my mouth, and then I repeated it, and it became a mantra for people.
Yeah, rallying cry. I'm not sure you were trying to make a political message, but I have to say, watching it now and where we are in this country, it feels that way. It feels incredibly relevant as a message about standing up to fascism. Mm-hmm. How do you think about that and your grandmother's experience and sort of where we are now?
I mean, obviously, I can't believe this is where we are. I cannot believe, and I'm so glad she is not alive to see what has happened, and that never again has been the mantra post-Holocaust. And here we are, and we are just, humans are so tribal, and we are just forced to repeat these patterns. And I don't know, it's our lot in life. I don't understand it, but here we are. But I also think a lot of people will yell and scream, "You're not stepping out of line the way that I think you should be stepping out of line." And that's dangerous, the way that my grandmother survived is she ripped off her star, and she went up to that guard, and she said, "What happens if I step out of line?" He said, "I don't have the heart to shoot you, but somebody will." And she stepped out of line, and then she lied, said she was with the Red Cross. Then she went back, and then she hid, and then she quietly survived. And she, there's so many different ways to survive, and there's so many different ways to step out of line. And that's one thing I always talk to people about when they, you know, some people will come at me for, why aren't you stepping out of line louder? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? It's like, here's how I am stepping out of line. And I know exactly what I'm doing and where I'm donating and what I'm funding and the postcards I'm writing and the telephone calls that I'm making. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different ways to step out of line. But I to answer your question, I can't believe we're here again. My son right now is taking AP US history. And last year he took world history. And as I study with him every night, I can't believe that what I'm reading, you know, learning about our Constitution again, that, oh, this isn't working. This experiment isn't exactly working. Oh, we need to amend a lot of these things. You really start studying the language again and looking at where things have slipped through the cracks. But it is really something that our fight against tyranny is here once again.
So now it's time for our segment called The First Laugh. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions about firsts in your career and life, starting with the first piece of comedy that you remember making you laugh really hard as a kid growing up.
What year was Airplane? When did Airplane first come on?
Mid-70s?
I want to say
7? I don't know.
I mean, so many things made me laugh, obviously. The TV show Soap, I loved as a kid. It made me laugh so hard. But that movie Airplane, seeing that with my brothers, in particular, that one moment where he says, this was a bad time to quit sniffing glue. And his hair, things in that movie made me laugh, and we could not stop laughing. And Steve Martin albums were on actual record albums. Comedy Is Not Pretty, Cruel Shoes, those things made me laugh so hard. I didn't understand a lot of it, but
it just, you knew it was funny.
I knew it was funny. My oldest brother, Adam, was kind of an arbiter of, he had great taste, and he's the one who introduced me to Steve Martin. So those were, and SNL, you know, Gilda Radner and Madeline Kahn. I mean, there's just so many people that made me laugh. But I think the biggest crying belly laugh were some of those moments in Airplane.
What about the first time that you knew that you were funny, that you could make other people laugh?
This interview.
So this is it?
That I'm on something called The Last Laugh. I think for many Jewish children, it's Passover. That's your first performance. Passover is a Jewish holiday where you sit around and you read this text. It's like a play. Someone is the leader and you take on parts during it. And it's the story of the Jews being slaves in Egypt and their exodus. And it was during that time where I think I really started, you know, noticing, oh, everyone's quiet and I'm talking. And I said something in a funny voice and people laughed, and you drink wine. And, you know, I think that was the first time I saw what it meant to hold an audience's attention and play a part.
That's impressive to get Seder laughs as a kid. That's good.
Seder laughs. I used to change all the language of God from he to she.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Very early age. Do the booming voices, let my people go. I don't know. It was, and the family was very open to that. Everyone enjoyed that it was playful. And so, yeah, that was the first laugh I think I got.
When you look back at your career, is there something you said no to at the time that you now say, oh, maybe I should have said yes to that one?
No.
Nothing?
No, I mean, the truth is, I probably should lie about this, but I'm not offered a lot of things. It's not
a lot of opportunity to say no.
Yeah, there's not things there have, I should say, post Maisel, there were some opportunities that didn't feel right. I had just come off of, it was 5 seasons, but 6 years of work and being away from my kids and having to fly back and forth, first from Barcelona to New York, then from New York to LA. And I just did not want to get, you know, tied up into a 5 or 7 year contract on a new show and not be. I had to put in some parenting time.
Yeah.
It was that was my priority, and so there were some things that I said, thank you, and this is cool, but I just can't. I can't leave again.
Yeah, but nothing you regretted.
No, you kind of know. There's something in you that knows. I mean, there's things that I read for that I didn't get. I regret.
Yeah,
I wish
well, that's
I had
different.
gotten,
Yeah,
but yeah, no. It's interesting. I think you're right for something or you're not, and
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's nothing that I.
Is there anything that you said yes to that you then thought maybe I should have said no to?
Can I say this podcast? No.
Aw.
I'm teasing. I don't think so. Like I say, there's this, I hate that expression, everything happens for a reason. I think that's a cop out, but I do
Yeah.
think that there's, when something's right for you to be doing, or I do. I've been lucky that I've got a gut and I go with it. And I don't think so. I've been so lucky. I mean, do you realize you look at from MADtv, 1997, I have, knock on wood, been working steadily, and each thing led to the next thing.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty incredible.
that's so rare. It's so unusual. And it hasn't been the type of what I perceive as awful level of celebrity where you can't live.
Totally, yeah.
Can't have a life. Like, I've been able to have my life and hang out with my kids and go anywhere I want, and I'm not get recognized, but you're not harassed or hounded.
It helps that the thing that you're most famous for is not your face on on Family Guy.
The longest running gig.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of people that don't know I am the same person.
Right.
All the
time. From all these different things, yeah.
I get messages online that are, wait a minute. Susie is Lois? Or Miss Ungermeyer is Lois? Or, it's these bizarre worlds that some people don't even know. They don't cross for some people. It's interesting.
Do you have a story or memory about the first time you met one of your really big comedy heroes, just someone who you looked up to so much, and what it was like to meet them for the first time?
Well, I mean, Dustin Hoffman is a great story, which I have told, but Dustin Hoffman is Tootsie, I think, is a perfect film.
Yes.
And then, I mean, everything else he's been in, but that one really resonated with me. And I've told the story before that I met him. I had the opportunity at the time we were doing Getting On. I was invited to some HBO party or event, and Dustin Hoffman was there, and I lost my mind. And I've always said, don't bug people. You know how awkward it can be when people come up to you. And unless you have something very specific to say, leave a person alone. Because what is the point if you have a very clear message, absolutely go up and say it. But if it's just, are you the guy that was on the, it's, and I saw him and I couldn't help myself. And I went up and I said, I just have to tell you, he was with his son. I said, you are the reason I'm in this business. You showed me that I could, in fact, be in movies and TV as an ugly woman. And his son laughed and he grabbed me and he said, don't you do that. Don't you do that. Don't you? I spent so many years of my life calling myself ugly or thinking I was ugly. Don't you do that. You are not ugly. You are just packaged differently. And you have to, it was kind of like that. And my brother, it was that moment, that reading of Tootsie, but he really was upset with me and he shook me. And his son then said, oh my God, Dad, this is a girl from Family Guy. And, then I actually met him, but it was this jarring, wonderful moment. And cut 2 years later now, I might be working with him and met him and got to retell him that story. And he didn't even remember it, but he was he was tickled.
Is it a father-daughter story that you're looking at with him?
It is not a father-daughter story.
That was my guess.
Yeah, it's a little more twisted than that. It's small and it's beautiful. It's bittersweet and funny, but I'm working hard to get that.
I'm looking forward to that. I hope that works out. The last question that we ask on the show: is there a story or memory from your career that makes you laugh now, but really was not funny when it happened?
Working on the set of Catwoman, I was in Catwoman. I don't know if you've heard of it.
That was the Halle Berry.
The Halle Berry,
crossover?
Sharon
Yeah.
Stone, amazing. I mean, I was beyond excited. And we were shooting in Canada. We were shooting in Vancouver. And it was a hospital scene. My character's in a hospital because she has used this cream that we don't, it's made by an evil empire, and it's actually going to kill women, not make them more youthful. I don't know. So I was suffering from these debilitating headaches. I'm in bed. Halle Berry, my bestie from work, comes to visit me. We're shooting in an empty office building. So they just made it look like a hospital room. There was no proper ventilation. There was no air conditioning. They would bring it in, but turn it off between takes. Lots of lights. It was very warm. And it was one of the first big parts I had really in a movie. And I was in the bed, and I stayed in the bed, and they're relighting, and I stay in the bed, and they're changing this. I stay in the bed. Hallie's coming and going. I stay in the bed. Finally, it gets to a point where I have to pee so bad. I cannot hold it anymore. And I say, to the AD, may I go to the restroom? She's like, of course. Like, you didn't have to stay here. We have a stand-in or a lay-in, someone that could come while we're doing the lighting. You don't have to be here. I was like, oh, I didn't know. And of course, go to the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom. They call the stand-in. She gets in the bed. And when I come back, everyone on set is looking at me very strangely and with great pity. And I don't know what has happened. And a lot of people are averting their eyes, and I'm so uncomfortable. And the AD pulls me aside, the assistant director, and says, listen, you can't do that. If you have to use the restroom, go. Now we had this stand and have to get in the bed and sit in your mess. And they thought I had peed. I sweat so profusely in the bed. It was dripping wet, and they assumed I had pissed the bed. The stand-in was in tears because she thought she was laying in my, not that sweat's that much better, but
yeah.
I was so mortified. I mean, I think I was crying, and everyone on set, I then felt like if I said, I swear I didn't pee, there was no way I could get out.
Yeah, it's going to make it worse.
It was so awful. And now I think it's hilarious.
That's a good story.
Oh God, it was awful.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for doing this. Where can people get tickets to see your live show? And
my live show. The next show, Alex Borstein Is Thirsty. I'm going to be in Minneapolis and Chicago this month, but they are sold out.
Okay, so not those.
14th. But then I'm going to be in New York on November 12th at the Bell House in Brooklyn. It's part of the New York Comedy Festival.
Yes.
November 12th in New York, and then November 13th in Washington, D.C. at the Miracle Theater.
Very cool.
So yeah, and then after that, Sonoma, California, and San Francisco.
Oh, that's my neck of the woods. Maybe I'll see you there.
Where are you at?
I'm in Berkeley.
Oh, all right. I went to SF State.
Very cool.
So yeah, it'll be, I do think there are still tickets left for New York, Washington, D.C., and some for Sonoma. I think SF is sold out. But yeah, I would love to see you there. You can go to my Instagram, and in my bio, there's a link tree with a link for all the tickets.
We'll put a link to that in the description for the episode as well. But thank you, Alex Borstein. This has been fantastic. I've been a fan of yours for so long, as I said, so I'm glad that we got to do this.
Thanks for having me.